And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Hilchos Tefillah, Baruch Hashem. We're basically caught up to date. We're in the middle of Siman Tzadi Sif Chaf Gimel. And we're in the middle of learning the halachas as they pertain to Makom Kavua, and to put it more broad, it's the halachas of aiding Kavana and ensuring you're in a setting, a scenario in which it's conducive to have Kavana by davening. We see the paramount importance of Kavana. Says the Mechaber in Sif Chaf Gimel, HaMegadim HaMetzuyarim, colored garments, Afal or pictured garments, Aval tapestries, Avish in boltais, even though they're not emerging, sticking out. Inach Nespal connect them. You should not daven with this colorful picture tapestry opposite you. And if it happens, you should close your eyes. Says the Rambam. And similarly, it's forbidden to draw pictures inside the Sfarim the one is davening from, not to mess up one's kavana. But garments that have words that are lowly manners, I feel would be aser. So explains the Machaber, Sivkatan Ayin, what's going on over here? What's the reason that one should not daven opposite these colorful tapestries, etc.? Says the Machaber, Ein Nachain, because we don't want you looking, you get distracted. The same theme we keep on talking about. You get distracted, you start looking at the tapestry, you start looking at the pictures, and what's going to happen? You're not going to have kavanah in your davening. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. The issue of chatzitza, like which we learned the previous sifim, that you're not directly opposite the wall, that is not a problem. If there's no pictures, it happens to be some tapestry on the wall, that is not a problem. And that's the reason why we should not have these pictures on this farm. Sefkat and Ayin Aleph, says the Mishnah Berurah. And similarly, Yesh Lizayr, one should be careful, mitam, due to the reason, as we turn over the page over here, mitam zeh, for this reason, shaloi litzayer bekoisel biskeneses, there should not be pictures on the wall of the basic knesses, yirim neged panav shel adam, pictures opposite where one is davening. If there's going to be pictures, it should be above eyesight. Again, so when you're davening, you don't get distracted. A very famous, perhaps not such known halacha, you're not allowed to daven opposite a mirror. It looks like you're bowing down to your own image. Even if you close your eyes. If your eyes are open, either way it is forbidden. As we've already learned, cause you messes up your kavana when you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Therefore you shouldn't have things with different tiflos, lowly manners. It's disgusting. Is usher. Of course, one should have inappropriate pictures and statements, etc. Before we move on to Sif Chaf Daled, let's take one moment to look at Dirshu note number 82, in which it discusses davening opposite a mirror. Says, and actually let's start with 80. You know what? Let's go all the way up to 79. Says Dirshu over here, and therefore lachem b'sukkos, they have pictures of rabbanim, etc. The stipler wouldn't daven there. It's beautiful pictures. It's a wonderful sukkah, but you're davening and you're going to get distracted. Similarly, comes along Dirshu note number 80. What about on the paroiches, lions and different pictures, beautiful pictures, and certainly to make the figure of lions in a shul. Many write it is forbidden. Shel Zechuvas Ma'abit, the Taz, Birkei Yosef, Darkei Tshuva. And even to have pictures of the 12 Mazalis, the constellations, the Shel Zechuvas Prisada says you should not have it in shul. However, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, Shenoyin Lasses Suras Aryeh Kudas Reva Paiskim Sheitiru. Rav Moshe writes to have a picture of a lion, many are mekel, and you should not be moicha. Chazon Ish, however, says Lasses Suras Chatul Oisef Lo Reima, Deshayira Ka'aryeh. It should be a cat and make it similar to a lion. Dirshu continues in note number 81 in discussing where do you make pictures on the walls. We said above eyesight. Rosh Zalman says nowadays we should refrain even higher up on the wall. Why? Because people look upward. I guess back then people had more control and they only look straight, but nowadays people look up. Says Rishon Zalman, we shouldn't even have pictures higher. Comes along number 82, perhaps one of the most common scenarios. I know here in the office, the koil in the office, there are windows. Are you allowed to daven opposite the window? That at the nighttime it has the din of a mara. Says the stipler, you should be careful about this. Comes on the Shevet Levi, and he's limud chos ala tefillah keneged hashvisi shel nei hashat shel nasek ein mara. So the Shevet Levi says sometimes the picture in front of the Sheikh Sibur, it's a glossy, it's a glass, and it's like a mirror. He says the Shevet Levi, it's not why it's made, rather for kedusha shivisi and therefore there's no reason. Now the Shevet Levi svara doesn't really help for a window. A little bit it does, because the window is not being created for your image, for a mirror. But then again, you don't have the other svara that's made for something else, and therefore one should not daven opposite a window, just like you should not daven opposite a mirror. We continue with Sif Chavdal. It says the Mechaber lo yispalel b'tzad rabbi, should not daven next to your rabbi, lo achari rabbi, not behind him, lo in front of him, not in front of him. Yishayim says the Ramah, the Chol zalomay lo yispalel b'yachid. That's b'yachid, the Safal b'tziber imkach, who say the yeshiva say ein lachosh. If this is your place of sitting, you should not be worried. Im mispalel l'fanav v'achrav afal pi. It's toiv to be machmir. Says the Ramah, the accepted practice is to be mekel. It's mutter v'ayin b'yaradeya. So of course that would be the answer. Maybe this is where it comes from, that the Rebbe, the Rosh Hashiva, doesn't have people sitting all the way up to him. He has a little bit of his own area, so that no one is within his dalid amos. Comes along the Mishnah Berurah Sivkatan Ayin Gimel B'Tzad Rabbi Kihu Yuara. It's gaiva to daven next to your Rabbi. Shamaru Shavel Rabbi, because you're making it as if you're equal to your Rabbi. Rabbi Hainu Sharoiv Chachmasay Yemenu. Very important line, very debated line in the halacha. But says the Mishnah Berurah, what does it mean, Rabbi? It means someone that the majority of your Chachma came from him. Oya Gadol Hadar, which, based on that explanation, it's not always easy who can be determined as one's Rebbe, that the Rav of his Chachma, or it means the Gadol Hadar, because of Chayadam near Lihi to Adin Aviv, which, I don't know, just a comment, obviously it's not really the minhag. Many people daven in proximity of their father. It's also gaiva. It looks like you're bowing to your Rebbe. You're paying your Rebbe. Maybe your Rebbe has to take 3 steps back. And you're davening. And your Rebbe's going to wait for you, and that would be inappropriate that the Rebbe is waiting for the Talmud. And as well, you should not be davening in front of the Rebbe. Sivkat and Ayin Hey, Bekal v'Chaymer. Certainly, that's inappropriate. You're in front of him. Ein Lachash Sivkat and Ayin Vav. This is going on the Ramah, which the Ramah says, if you're B'tzibur, we don't have to be careful. Excuse me, if you have a set seat. Why? Because everyone knows this is your set seat. L'Rav Zel Talmud. But even though Sivkot and Ayin Zayin, it's Toiv Lahachmer Hainu Lachshal Tam Hashlishi Kanal and Meishner Kim Tzayir L'Rabbi looks at your painting Rebbe. So if he's a Yesh Lahachmer Gam B'Tzibur Achayra, according to this reason, we should Machmer even B'Tzibur. Haminig La'akel says the Ramah and the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Ayin Ches explains Ayin Bir Allah. Do we call Makam Toiv L'Chatchila Kishakavela Makam Achayri Rabbi? If this is your set seat, Sheyarchik Yishar Ba'amos Shal Psiyos Kadesh Yisar Rabbi, should make sure you're not within Daled Amos, not to pay in the Rebbe. And we continue with the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Ayin Tes, in which he's explaining the Machaber, that the Machaber taught us that if you're not within Daled Amos, it is mutter. Ayin Tes says the Mishnah Berurah, why is it mutter? Because once you're outside of Daled Amos, it's Rishus Acheres He. If you're in front of the Rebbe, it's enough exactly Daled Amos. If you're behind the Rebbe, it needs to be 4 amos and 3 steps. Why? That we learned when you're davening Shmones, you're not allowed to take 3 steps back. back if there's someone behind you, and how much of a distance within Dalet Amos, and that includes your 3 steps. So in order to be able to take the 3 steps, the Rebbe has to be Dalet Amos and 3 steps. You have to be now within Dalet Amos and 3 steps, so the Rebbe in front of you could take his 3 steps back. We will see more. That this is, what's this Almer? And so if we look at the bottom over here, it explains that this is the Bima. And finally, Sivkata and Pei, Ayin Yaradeya, on the comment of the Ramah, Ratzalaymar. So the Mishmur explains, what are we looking Yaradeya for? There we learn that if you're outside the 4 amos, it helps even if your Rebbe is behind you. And such rights, the Achrayim. And with that, we continue. We're going to do Siv Chav Hey and Chavav and Chav Zayin together, closing out the Siman. Talmud Chaver Mutter Le'Yisrael Achay Rabbav. The Talmud Chaver, which is a term in which the Talmud is somewhat on par with the Rebbe, then you're allowed to daven behind the Rebbe. And Siv Chavav Kol Makar Shein Karim Ba Kriyas Shema in Misbalim Bai. Any place you're not allowed to daven Kriyas Shema, reminding yourselves of all the halachas of Saya and Besmal, etc. Just like if to distance yourself from excrement, from urine, from a bad smell, from a dead body, umaris erva, the kriyishma kach marchik in the tefillah, so too you have to be marchik for tefillah. And finally, Sif Chav Zayin, you're davening and a child that's an accident. Stop davening until they pour water on it, thereby diluting, thereby nullifying the urine. So let's tell you should walk out of 4 amos of the area. Or leave the shul and finish davening. Which we're seeing an important halach, even though you're middle of Shemona Esrei, if it's impossible for you to continue, and as much, of course, you can't walk in middle of Shemona Esrei, we see if you can't daven, then you're allowed to walk, because that's all a seirech, a necessity of the tefillah. Says the Ramav, not to be quiet, because you might take a break the amount of time to finish Shemona Esrei, and then you're going to have to go back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei. And we continue with Sif Pei Aleph, Sif Kadam Pei Aleph. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Chayi Rabbi, if you're a Talmud Chaver, it's still aser. Sivkat Chavav, in which we said that tefillah is the same halachas of kriyish ma'ishvi marchikin, the tefillah Sivkat and Beibeis, v'adin l'talmud Torah v'chol divrei kedusha, as we've seen previously when we learned these halachas in halachas kriyish ma. The same thing applies for divrei Torah and any matter of kedusha. Sivkat Beigimel b'tefillah v'adin kriyish ma'ashar divrei kedusha. If there's an accident in shul, you have to stop davening. Why did it say davening? As an extra chiddush, you can even walk the 4 amos. Because we pointed out, the chiddush here is that maybe one would say, what do you mean? You're in the middle of davening, how can you walk? That is the chiddush. And we continue with Sivkat and Peidal, that you should be yishtaik. The chol is not called a hafsik because you're waiting. It's a tzarich of the tefillah. You can't talk to say bring water. Interesting. One would think, what do you mean? It's the same tzarich of the tefillah to tell someone to bring water. But says the Mishnah Berurah, since the whole isser to daven in front of Meir Aglaim is an isser derabanan, if you were to tell someone to bring water, it's not allowed. You don't have to tell someone if they don't realize, because it's only an Issa Derabanan. Now that's all Meir Aglayim, because the Issa of davening within the proximity of Meir Aglayim is Issa Derabanan. But let's say it's proper. Let's say there are people davening and they don't realize that a child sitting there with a dirty diaper. I should say a dirty diaper. It's really he's teen of his actual tzaya. So if there's no other way to tell him aside for talking, you're allowed to talk. Why? Because you're saving them from an Isser Daraisa. They're davening in proximity of sayers and Isser Daraisa. If you're even allowed to talk to save them. A very important rule, says the Mishnah Berurah, for you to be mafsik in the middle of Shemona Asri is also aser. But it's better for you to do a small iser, to be mafsik, tahainu iser derabanan lafsik betfilah, which is derabanan, to interrupt your davening. Misha yazu achayim iser derais, to save someone else iser derais, l'sbav makom mitunaf, that he's davening in a filthy place. It's only if you can't cover it up. If you could cover it up, you could never be mafsik, you just have to cover it up. Finally, if you're afraid you might take a break and you might have to wait enough time to finish Shemona Esrei, you have a different problem. You want to go walk out, but there's someone else davening Shemona Esrei and you can't walk in front of him. We can be samech on the Rajba that says it's not a problem davening with Meiraglaim. You might be in the middle of davening. This is the Rabbanan to be semich on the Rajba. V'yitzarach sevgat bevav ayin le'al b'seven ayin ches mishbur sevgat hey to berachas kriyash mam nezamim kein v'chein b'chol berachas izar lachzer le'roish. It is late, but for one moment, let's just look at the Dirshu over here. That let's just begin. Number 88. Dirshu points out that the age of the child that is an issue. We already saw that it has to be a child that eats real food, not a newborn infant. And in number 89, it's only your friends, not a Pesheya. Okay, and finally, okay, we're gonna stop over here. Now let's look at one more. Let's look over at Dirshu note number 85. Number 85, Dirshu comments, what about doing a mitzvah? Tilas lulav tkiya shofar in a makom mitunaf. So the Berurah is going to teach us that it's aser. But the Mata Ephraim writes they have to go back and do it again without a bracha. And the reason is, says the Berurah, that's considered divrei Torah. The kavana to be yotze to the mitzvah, fascinating. That kavana is the status of divrei Torah, and that you're not allowed to do in a makom mitunaf. And he adds on, mitzvah, you're standing ke'ovid avodas Hashem, and you can't do that in derech b'zayin. So of course, l'chatzchilas, you don't do that in a makom mitunaf. What would happen in a matzvah b'diavad? You should do it again without a bracha, and we'll pick it up Siman Sadi Aleph in the next year in Mirza Hashem.